Let's talk about Egypt. Now, Egypt was not on my bucket list, but it was very high on my dad's bucket list. So when we had the opportunity to sign up for a World Playground trip, which World Playground I love, I've been on lots of adventures with them before, I jumped at the chance because I thought, how cool to get to go see this place like with my dad. Now, I was super nervous going into this trip, from the cultural differences to the safety concerns, but it seriously ended up being one of my favorite places I've ever been. So in this video, I'm sharing Egypt 101, from the arrival process to packing, tipping, bathrooms, and the coffee situation. I'm giving you everything you need to expect as a Westerner traveling to Egypt. So let's get into it. But before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more travel inspo and how-to content. Okay, so first of all, I want to caveat this by saying that we did travel as part of a luxury tour group. It was quite expensive. I think we paid like $12,500, somewhere around there, per person for our trip. But like, we stayed at the Four Seasons, we had private transport, we had some private charters that took us to Luxor, that took us to Petra. So your experience may vary, but I want to at least give you some of the commonalities of what to expect if you're going to go to Egypt. First of all, let's talk about the arrival process at the airport. Now, we landed at midnight, so the airport was like fairly empty. It wasn't crazy at all, which was great. First thing we had to do was get our visa. Now, apparently there is an e-visa process, but it was not very easy to navigate. So we were advised that it was much simpler to just pay for our visa when we arrived. It was $25 US cash, and the bills had to be in good condition. One person in our group had like a nicked 20 and they wouldn't accept it. We had to swap it out for something in better condition. So make sure that your money is in good condition. This is kind of a thing. This is a thing in Africa, by the way, like in everywhere I've ever been in Africa, like they want good condition money. So just an overall tip. So we had a greeter who helped us. He took us through the visa process. It was super easy. You had to fill out a form, like a little arrival form. They handed that out on the airplane. If you missed it, you could get it at the immigration office, but it basically was just like your name, where you're staying, how you arrived, that sort of thing. So fill that out, would get your visa. The visa is actually a really pretty sticker that they put into your passport. The guy stamps it, you go through, easy peasy. Then if you checked a bag, you can pick up your bag at the baggage carousel. Hopefully it arrives. We had one person in our group whose bag did not arrive from Paris. That was a bummer. And you know me, I never check a bag, so no sweat. On our way out of the airport, we had to go through another security check where they scanned our bags to make sure we weren't bringing in any illegal contraband. And then we got into our cars. By the way, I have read drones are a big no-no in Egypt. Okay, just a heads up. If you are like somebody who loves to do photography or video, just don't bother. Don't take a drone with you to Egypt. Like they are not welcome. So our trip, we were there at the end of March, which is the month of Ramadan. Now, during Ramadan, devout Muslims fast for the entire day, and they fast from food, alcohol, sex, and smoking. So they're very low energy, like all day long. But it was very interesting traffic-wise because the traffic pattern almost kind of flips, where it's sort of quietish during the day and then it gets very busy at night. So with us arriving at midnight, by the time we had to file that baggage claim for our friend, we were on the road about 1 o'clock in the morning and the traffic was very, very bad. It took about 45 minutes for us to get from the airport to the hotel. In contrast, when we were leaving, it took 20 minutes when Ramadan was over. So traffic, a little unpredictable there. Now, when we arrive at the hotel, here's the other surprise. There's a lot of security. So at the hotel, there was a security check for our vehicle. So we had to stop. They have like a bomb sniffing dog that walks around, sniffs everything. They check everything out. They pop the trunk. And then you go through and you get to the lobby of the hotel and you have to go through another x-ray machine. And this is every time you go in and out of the hotel. Actually just into the hotel, not out of the hotel. When you go into the hotel, you have to scan your bag through an x-ray machine and you have to go through a metal detector. So plenty of security going into our hotel. Now going back to Ramadan. Being there during Ramadan is kind of like traveling there in the off season, which can be really great because the sites are less busy, less crowded. It's a time when like the weather can be really, really good. It can be kind of unpredictable, so it can get really hot, but we had like 80-degree weather while we were there. So it's a good time of year to travel. But there are a couple of considerations. Number one, a lot of the sites close early. So you have to take that into account when you're planning your museum visits and your other historical site visits. Two, there is very limited alcohol available. Alcohol is available in hotels where tourists are staying, and we were told that it would be available at some restaurants, and it was, and we needed to have a copy of our passport just in case they ask. They won't serve alcohol to locals, but they will serve it to tourists. So in some of the restaurants, we were able to get alcohol, and others, none. It was, however, available at the hotel, but it was expensive. Just for reference, again, we stayed at the Four Seasons, Cairo, Nile Plaza, and a gin and tonic was like $30 US. I didn't drink a lot. But other than those couple of things, the site's closing early, sort of limited staff, some of the restaurants were closed, and it was like less crowded, Ramadan was a really good time to go. So do recommend. The next thing you gotta know if you're going to Cairo is the traffic is wild. The driving situation. Do not drive. Do not drive. It's insane. There are no rules. There are like very limited rules. People drive very aggressively. They swerve in and out, and they communicate with their horns. So in the US, I don't know if this is in other like Western countries, but in the US, you honk your horn to alert somebody of like a danger, or maybe if you're mad. And even then you shouldn't if you're mad, because road rage has become a very real thing. But in Cairo, it is like, beep, beep, I'm coming through. Beep, beep, like, don't stop. Beep, beep, I'm here. Like, the song of Cairo is car horns. So just like be aware. And also, if you're a light sleeper, bring earplugs, because you're gonna hear it out on the street. The horns are 24/7. Very annoying. Getting around Cairo, taxis and Ubers are pretty ubiquitous. Actually, Uber is a relatively safe, convenient, reliable service in Cairo, so you can always do that. We had charter buses, and we took car services to and from the airport. Okay, let's talk about all things money next. You're gonna wanna exchange your US dollars, your euros, for some Egyptian pounds. Right now, the exchange rate was about 50 to 1 Egyptian to US. So the US dollar is pretty strong there. We used the ATM in the hotel, which don't use their conversion, because like if you use their conversion, it charges you like more money than you're even taking out. I think I was trying to take out 1,000 Egyptian pounds, and it was like, do you want to accept our conversion? There's a $27 fee. 1,000 Egyptian pounds is 20 US dollars. So it was gonna charge me $27 to take out $20? The math didn't math. So I said no, and ended up just withdrawing, and it was fine. I don't think my bank even charged me a foreign transaction fee, which was great. Now you're going to want to try and get small bills, because tipping in Egypt is ubiquitous. Everybody's got their hand out for a tip. It's kind of wild, quite honestly, everywhere you go. And you have to be really careful, because there are places you'll go, like the airport, for example, where you'll pull up in your car and these guys will run up and they'll just grab your bags out of the car and put them on a cart and take them. And then they expect you to give them a tip. Or they'll like run you through like a expedited line and be like, that's $20. And you didn't ask them to do that. They just did it. So you have to be really, really on top of your stuff and be willing to say no, no, thank you, no, and just like box them out, quite honestly. Don't worry about being rude. Like just protect your stuff. But tipping was really prominent in other places. One place in particular you need to be aware of is that you have to tip to use any bathroom. Pretty much any bathroom. Like in the hotels, no. But the airports, the museums, restaurants, like there's some kind of attendant usually that's there who is expecting you to give them like $1. And I would just tip a US dollar or 10 Egyptian pounds. And that was totally fine. In fact, in some of the bathrooms, they would like hold the toilet paper hostage. Like they took all the toilet paper out. And then when you walked in, they'd like hand you some. And you basically had to pay for that to use the bathroom. Their country, their rules, right? So just know, anytime you go to the bathroom, you need to have like a US dollar on you. That was a weird one. I will say though, bathrooms were in great shape. I think there was like one bathroom where I was a little like, ugh. But everywhere else, really good bathrooms. Okay, the next thing you need to know about money is the persistent vendors and haggling. So 2 things here. When you go to any of the ancient sites, there are a ton of people peddling stuff. When you go to Hatshepsut's tomb, which is sort of the big one that looks like Greek columns built into the side of the hill, there's like a row. You have to walk through a row of vendors on either side, and they are all just like out there yelling at you. They are really pushing it, and they're actually pretty funny. Like they're very clever. But you got to like run the gauntlet to get to any of these sites. That happened at Hatshepsut's tomb. It happened at Valley of the Kings, the pyramids. A lot of people haggling stuff. Now, these can be good places to shop, but just know that there's a lot of like not authentic items, right? You don't really care, whatever. Go buy, go shop, because it can be a great place to find some cheap souvenirs. Just know that haggling is expected. So they're gonna come in with a high number and you should come back at half. or lower if you're feeling adventurous, like feel it out. But if you don't know how to haggle, start by at least just like going in at the midway point and then see where you end up, right? Be willing to walk away. That can help to get them down. Be willing to like add in other items to be like, no, I'll do 2 for that amount, but not 1. Play around with it. It can actually be kind of a fun experience. One of my favorite things that I haggled on this trip was this ring. I bought this in Petra. It was actually this kid who had a stall like right outside the bathrooms, and I was already feeling like a little inclined because he was nice enough to point out where the bathroom was. And then I came out and I was browsing, and he had these like really beautiful rings, and he's telling me like, oh, this is gold. I don't know if I believe that. And it's moonstone, and we sell it by the weight. So I was like, well, how much is that one? So he takes it, he weighs it, and he said 60 dinar, which in Petra is in the country of Jordan. It's not in Egypt. It's in the country of Jordan. So the Jordan dinar has a lower exchange rate than the US dollar. So the US dollar is not as strong. So I told him I don't have dinar, and he said, well, 100 US. And I was like, oh no, I don't have 100 US. I was like, I have $30. And he was like, no, 30's not, no. He's like, you have more than that. You have more than that. I was like, no, I don't have it. So I take out my little purse and I've got like some US cash in it. And he's like, just give me all your cash. And I was like, I'm not giving you all my cash. Like, I was like, I need this. This is all my cash. I need this. And I said, I'll give you 30 US. And he's like, no, you give me that much. And I was like, no, I'll give you all the 5s. I said, I'll give you all the 5s. And I counted out the 5s and there were 30. And he's like, give me the 1s. He was a salesman, this kid. And I was like, no, I'm not giving you the 1s. I was like, I'll give you 40. And he's like, what about that? You have that 10 there. And I was like, no, I need that. I need that for the bus. Which is a lie, but whatever. I was like, I'll give you 40. And he's like, oh, I understand. I was like, that's all I have. I was like, okay, if you can't do 40, like then like I can't do it. And he's like, okay, fine. So I paid $40 for this. Is it worth $40? I don't know. That's up to you, right? This could have been made in China. I have no idea. I'll probably take it to a jeweler at some point. But here's what I will say. This ring on my left hand is from Madewell. I paid $60 for this ring, and it was made in Vietnam. So is there really like a difference between these two? Because they're both really pretty. And I like them both. I don't know, the value is what it is to you, right? Okay, so just know that like the vendors are very persistent. Feel free to just ignore them. Keep walking, it's not rude. Just go by or say, no thank you, no thank you. If you make eye contact, you're done for. So just, okay, eyes on the prize, get out. All in all, I didn't really feel like anywhere was trying to take advantage of me. We had one situation at the coffee shop at the airport where it was like 2 teenage girls who were running the coffee stand, and like they were running a scheme. They told me like 3 different prices for my coffee. It was very annoying. But, you know, it was like the difference of like $5. So not a huge deal, it just more like left a sour taste in your mouth. Okay, that's everything I have to say about money. The next thing let's talk about that I know is probably one of the top things on your mind is safety. Now, I'll be honest, I felt very safe in Cairo. To be fair, I didn't do a lot of walking around by myself, nor probably would I. But in my tour group, I felt very safe. Now, part of that is that every American tour group that goes has like a silent security. This is actually like a requirement of the US government, apparently. We learned this on our trip. You have to have some kind of like tourism police that's either with you on the bus or they're following you around. So there's always like some sort of security with you. So that's cool. And when we were in Jordan going to Petra, we had a police officer actually on our bus with us. Every single site had x-rays going into it, except for like the pyramids because there's no like gate check. But every single museum, Petra, Luxor, all these places, they had security going into every single site. So every site you'd have to go through and like send your bag through. They'd check it for sharp objects. Museums, they would take away like scissors or tweezers, anything that could like damage the artifacts. And then you'd go through an x-ray, or not an x-ray, sorry, a metal detector for yourself. Some of the museums, you even have to scan your stuff when you're leaving to make sure you didn't steal anything. And like I said, anytime that a bus or a car or whatever pulls up to a hotel, they also had security like checking the vehicle. So lots of security, felt very safe. Now, while Egypt is a Muslim country, it actually has a diverse view of religions. So I never really felt unaccepted or particularly threatened. And the country really values tourism. And it's taken a hit. It's taken a hit with the war in Gaza. It's taken a hit with just like general unrest in the region. So they're very solicitous of tourists. But as always, there are pickpockets and thieves about, as anywhere you're gonna go. So I always recommend wearing that crossbody bag with a zipper or pants with zippers, so you're always having a little extra barrier against pickpockets and thieves. Now, one security piece I wanna make sure I talk about is the airports, because we spent a lot of time at airports on this trip. We did a charter group, popped down to Luxor for a day. We did the trip down to Sharm el Sheikh. We flew out to Petra and Jordan. So we spent a lot of time in airports. The airports in Egypt will have 2 security checkpoints. The first one is to get into the building itself. So you will go in and go through an x-ray for your stuff and go through a metal detector and get a pat down. Everywhere you go, it's like pat downs. I got so many pat downs, but they're pretty quick and it's like not a problem. So get all your stuff. And again, this is where I was talking about before. You need to watch your like bags because the helpers will grab them and take them, and then you end up having to pay them, which is annoying. So hold on to your bag. Then you'll go through, you'll stand in line, you'll get your ticket. And let me just say, the computer systems are a little antiquated, and so it would take like a very long time to get tickets, which is really annoying. So as much as you can like have carry-on bags or whatever, so they don't have to mess with that. It helps, trust me. But after you get your ticket, then you head to the gates, you go through another security checkpoint, and this time you have to take your shoes off and send your stuff through. And every single one, you gotta like belt off, hat off, glasses off, like you gotta make it pretty minimal to go through and get your pat down. It was a lot of security, it was very annoying, but if it keeps us safe, fine. Okay, let's talk about what it is to travel as a woman in Egypt, and like also what you should be wearing. Okay, so in hotels, it's pretty much fine. Like you're treated the same. In fact, I was surprised because I traveled with my dad, and oftentimes the hotel staff would like defer to me for things. So I found that very interesting. I don't know why, but they did. Sometimes you get a little bit of staring, but I do find that pretty common when you're traveling through the Middle East. I find that anytime I go through the Doha airport in Qatar, always staring. I had one instance of a guy who was kind of rude because I held the door for him and his buddies just like out of courtesy, and he didn't even acknowledge me. He just like bulldozed right past me, and I was like, cool. So you do get these little reminders of like, oh yeah, women are not held in the same equal regard as men here, which sucks. But again, their country, their rules. Now with that, one of the biggest things I paid attention to was what I was wearing in Egypt. Obviously it's a more conservative country, though it's not like the most conservative country in sort of the Middle East region. It is still expected, appreciated, that women are respectful in their dress. So that typically means covering your shoulders and covering your knees. Shorts were okay at some sites. In fact, the sites were they're more touristy, so I think they're more accepting that people are gonna dress in like more Western dress. But everybody in our group was dressed respectfully, long dresses for the most part, or like pants and a shirt they could throw on, or a shawl. Always a great idea to like have a shawl with you to throw over your shoulders. And in some places we went to like the Islamic Quarter, when we went to mosques, they recommend that you cover your feet. When you go into like the Alabaster Mosque, they will actually give you shoe covers to put over your shoes. So closed-toed shoes were actually a great idea in most places. Also because at the sites, many of the historical sites, they are dusty and dirty. Like it's not paved, obviously, so you have these gravel roads. It's pretty kind of gross. And there are a lot of stray dogs running around everywhere. So there's poop. So like sneakers are a good option, right? Get yourself a cute pair of sneakers. Egypt can also get very, very hot. So you'll want to have a hat with you that's got a brim to protect your ears and your neck. And maybe wearing some loose clothes that cover are best. When we went to Luxor, I wore shorts and a short sleeve like linen shirt, button-up shirt over a tank top. And I was fine from like a respect standpoint, but my arms got very hot. It was like 100 degrees that day. So I kind of wish I had worn like a long sleeve shirt for that day. By the way, I have a video coming out next week on everything I wore to Egypt, so my exact outfits. So subscribe if you're not subscribed so you can get that video, or if you're watching this like after a week, cool, I'll put it at the end so you can go watch it. Okay, couple more things before we wrap this up. It's never an average girl 101 video if I don't talk about the bathroom situation. I don't know, I'm just like, I'm always obsessed with like knowing what the bathroom situation is anytime I go somewhere. So as I mentioned before, Western toilets were everywhere. It was great. I didn't see any squat toilets, which was awesome after being in Indonesia last year. So Western toilets everywhere we went. Some of them had like the bidet hose. If you've never used one of those, you walk in, there's like no toilet paper and there's just like a little hose. You just yourself off. It's actually kind of great. Kind of like it. Some of the more historical sites had composting toilets, but they were also in very good condition, so you really didn't even notice. The worst bathroom we had was the Sharm el Sheikh airport, which was kind of like a regional airport, and they had no toilet paper and like half the sinks weren't functioning. So that was a bummer. So I always recommend, like, in the morning, grab a little bit of toilet paper, stick it in your pocket so you're never caught off guard. It's always a good idea. And maybe pack like a little package of wet wipes too. And then, as I mentioned before, you do have to tip to use most of the bathrooms, so bring 10 Egyptian pounds or like a $1 bill in good condition. Okay, 3 other things I want you to know. One, I mentioned before, is that there are wild dogs and cats everywhere in Cairo. They're very cute. They mostly stay out of the way, but just so you're not like distracted when you get there, know that like there are packs of dogs walking around at all of the historical sites, outside the hotel, like walking down the street, crossing the street. It's pretty amazing. Like they very obviously live there. They seem well cared for. Like none of them were emaciated. And they've just got like a stray dog thing going on. The second weird thing I want you to know is that the air quality in Cairo is pretty horrific. It's very dusty. You're obviously like right next to the desert, so you will see like big sandstorms kind of kick up. A lot of smog, a lot of haze, a lot of pollution. And then also know that like smoking is pretty widespread. So people are allowed to smoke indoors in most places. Smoking is tough on like my lungs because I'm not used to it. So I had a really tough time with my sinuses, with breathing, all of that when I was in Cairo. So just make sure you like bring some sinus medication with you, spend some time in a steam room, like try to loosen it up. But it's been a week and I'm still sort of like feeling some congestion and some like lift from it. The final thing I want you to know about traveling to Egypt is that the coffee is not great. That was kind of a bummer. You can get Turkish coffee, but Turkish coffee is like drinking sludge. Otherwise, the coffee is pretty weak. So if you are somebody who likes a really good cup of coffee, like myself, I recommend bring your own either instant coffee with you that you like, or like a portable pour over for your hotel. Will make yourself a world of difference. Just trust me. If you want that really good cup of coffee, plan to provide for yourself. Okay, that's everything I have for you on Egypt. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments below and I will do my best to get back to everybody. And if you watch this and you're like, oh my God, I would be so afraid to go do this by myself, I've got 5 safety tips for you that are gonna help put your mind at ease. Go watch this video next. And until next time, go create a life you love.